Hello to those who joined us right on time. My name is Maurizio Catulli, and I'm the product manager at the Institute of Sustainability Studies. Thank you very much for yet another Sustainable Act Dialogue series webinar, where we bring you leading experts who distill the jargon often associated with topics and hold focused discussions on content that can help businesses and individuals realign commitment with action. Today, I am delighted to have all of you present for an exclusive webinar on the challenges of the circular economy to business, being delivered by our esteemed speaker, Dr. Maurizio Catulli. Dr. Catulli is a senior lecturer in sustainable innovations, a visiting researcher at the Open University, and a member of the Circular Economy Networks in Transportation Systems. He teaches managing change for environmental management, environmental problems, and customer research, and has led several live client consultancy project research on sustainable consumption by DEFRA. I invite Dr. to deliver the session. I just want to inform is being recorded, and the recording will be made available on the ISS website later. Please use the comment section on LinkedIn Live to share your thoughts and questions for Maurizio to address towards the end. Over to you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So you know my name already, and so I just want to quickly talk about the circular economy and mention that it is at the moment one of the fashionable aspects of business to talk about. I think many of you may agree that the artificial intelligence is perhaps the most interesting. You know, everyone is interested in that. And so the circular economy perhaps comes second, but actually artificial intelligence, among the things that it is engaged to do, is try to facilitate the circular economy. And I'll tell you why that happened. Really, the circular economy has been popularized by the McArthur Foundation, even by WRAP and other departments of governments on sustainability. But often it's only the benefits that are popularized, and perhaps not enough is said on the issues, you know, in the implementation, so the challenges that can arise. And that's exactly what I want to discuss in this session. So first of all, in terms of what I would like you to get from the session, is try to be more updated about is it actually being implemented and to what extent, the circular economy. Then I'd like to appreciate the risks that the implementation of the circular economy models poses and the challenges. So risks is as in what could go wrong, and challenges is that issues that we need to address in some way in order to succeed. One important aspect of the circular economy is this. So that is the classic definition, like textbook definition. So it is basically an economy where the resources are recirculated and reused. One important aspect is that you may think about a business that uses raw materials to build products, and these particular raw materials may be pre-use waste, which we may call waste valorization or valorized waste. And you can call it VW, like the car. Let's hope that they don't sue us for that. So valorized waste is a waste that you can use. And the reason why we use the term circular is because you got this concept of letting these resources be recovered and go around the life cycle and be reused again. So in other words, it's the concept of instead of cradle to grave, cradle to cradle, you know, reuse things. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation is definitely a link that you should look. And the hope is that, you know, it breaks the cycle that we got of make, break, dispose, that we do. You know, if you imagine you buy a bottle of water like this, you will drink the water, and you're going to throw the package away, the bottle. And there are lots of products like razors and pens that you do the same. So one of the important aspects is that, of course, the environmental benefits are important. However, one important element is the fact that you can secure certain time and resources, so you know that they are there, you can reuse them, and therefore you may have things like, benefits such as cost cutting. Now, what are the challenges? What I did, I went on the internet and got this slide that describes the main challenges. So you can see no recycling technology. So there are materials that are easy to recycle or reuse or refurbish or remanufacture. The values are that you go. But in some cases, there is no technology. Imagine mobile phones. They got a lot of materials that could be easy, nice to reuse, but it is very, very difficult because they are small, so you need a lot of a new technology to take them apart. Fear of losing customers. Would you actually use a product which has been reused? There is an issue with regulations, an issue with business models. So designing a business model so that guarantees that the waste is reused, and high investment costs, for example, to come up with technology that you need. So I'm going to tease that in some detail, but I want you to reflect on this first. As you can see, that is from The Guardian, and this should make you reflect on the unintended consequences of the circular economy. So what this article is saying is that you may take apart plastic products and try to reprocess them, but researchers demonstrate that this might develop some microplastics that in turn can end up in the sea and eventually also in our bodies. So that's one of the challenges, the unintended consequences that we actually don't even know that they are there. Is something that is difficult to foresee and forecast. But the next step is actually reflecting on how circular is the economy. So there is a report which is relatively recent from The Economist, and really what we are looking at is that the resources that are reutilized is a very small percentage. We are looking at 8.6, so well below 9%. So the article talks about the rhetoric of the circular economy. So if you look at the various websites like Ellen McArthur, it's easy to think that is a solution to all our problems, but actually it's not exactly working that well. And plastics are a bad nail, or the black beast. They're really, really difficult to control because there are many, many types of plastics, and there is not the technology to reuse them all. I'm not going to on this link, so I'd like you to visit in your own time since you are going to use the slides. However, I can show you the first page, which, as you can see, says the circular economy rhetoric needs a reality check. So what that is saying is that it is very easy to talk about the circular economy, but there is a danger, which is, awful attitude of wishful thinking, actually. But when you're actually trying to implement it, we can see that there is a lot of issues. And if you remember, one of the aspects in the slide that I showed you before about big investment being a problem, if you think that really worldwide, the 90% of businesses are small business enterprise, small SMEs, or small medium enterprises. So what that means is that those size of businesses, they find it difficult to invest in achieving the circular economy. What I want to do, I want to really talk about something which is a bit old, because the circular economy has been introduced quite recently, but there were concepts that underpin the circular economy, one of them being the industrial ecology concept. So that's a system approach, which is based on biomimicry. I'm very sorry because I forgot the bio there. Perhaps you can add you in pencil. So what the approach is trying to do is trying to build up an ecological living place where industries can actually circulate the various materials, recover and reuse them, which is what happens in life. You know, if you think about the natural world, if an animal is killed, it is actually going to decompose and be recirculated. So life cycle analysis is a very important aspect of that. And I want to use the butterfly for, introduced by Ellen McArthur, which in a way tries to show us a sort of circular economy. Sorry, it shows us an industrial ecology. So that's like a representation of an ecological aspect where you got the demand side and the supply side. And as you can see on the custom side, you got consumers consuming the product. So you start from the part manufacturer and you end up to service provider. Then you go recovery of waste. So what this we call the post-consumption circular economy, whereby on the right-hand side, you see what happens in the pre-consumption. So what happened at the level of the various organizations that circulate the various materials. So that's a way that could help us to visualize how an industrial ecology can work. One concept that we want to use to help out our understanding, and that starts to tease out the challenges in a way, it's industrial symbiosis. So both this concept of industrial ecology and industrial symbiosis were introduced in the 80s, 90s. So there was a book by Hochen et al. There was also an expert called von Weizsäcker. There is a number of books that have been written. And industrial symbiosis moves on and really tells us that companies, businesses can be in a symbiosis. So what that means is that the waste of a company might become the resource of another company. So they may try to reutilize some materials, and therefore they enter in symbiosis. That tells us two things. The first one is that really the basis of the circular economy, in a way that works for businesses, so in other words, that help us to cut costs and secure the resources, is all based on relationships. And that's one of the limitations, because forming relationships is hard. Further, I want to talk about the location and sources of waste. So we got what is called the pre-consumption waste, pre-consumption. So inside factory gates, that is easy to reuse the waste. But you can also have factory to factory, so business to business, and consumption. So all these little men and women are the consumers that get the materials, the products, and then they use it, and then they produce the waste. That's important because the inside gates is very easy to check and control, but the outside is hard. So let me talk about a case study from my experience. So that's a company called Abbey Steel, which recovers steel wasted from car industry. And they tried actually to reuse it as opposed to refurbish it, or especially avoiding resmelting it. So as you can see, there were some materials that were wasted. That if you punch holes through a sunroof, then you got a big piece of steel that you may want to reuse. Smelting it is not a good idea. So the idea is trying to reuse it without smelting it. And so those are some applications. We got minky ironing boards, where you use some of the steel sections to produce an ironing board. And Minky is a quite large company. Or you could potentially produce rat traps, which are relatively simple. And there were other products like silver lines, filing cabinets. And that's where the first stumbling blocks come. As you can see, steel is a commodity, so customer retention is hard because the price vary. But logistic costs are a big problem, because first of all, you got the cost of direct and reverse logistics, and you also got transverse logistics. So that's between different sections of a business, like different sites. Then you got the carbon impact for logistics that tells you, perhaps it's a zero-sum game. Then if you set up a business which is based on reusing steel, you need to know how much steel you got available, which may be a challenge. Then limited resources and the financial impact from steel fluctuations. On the right-hand side, you see some solutions. In this case, we use co-branding strategy. I'm not going to expand too much on that because I want to focus on the problems here. But as you can see, extensive use of digital resources is one good thing that resolves the issues of unpredictability. But at the same time, it introduced the problem of investing. So you need to have big investments in order to set up these things. So reflection. So that is a way to make you reflect about one of the limitations of the circular economy. So the business model I show you is based on reusing the waste from a company. But think if that particular company, say Nissan, becomes more and more efficient and reduce the use of waste, the production of waste, then someone like AB Steel that based their business in reusing waste steel may be strangled because there may be less and less steel waste, and therefore you may actually not be viable. So that's a big reflection that you need to see, to think about whether becoming more efficient, then they can undermine the circular economy. So those are some key challenges. So you got logistics, competence, and resource needed, the needs of waste reprocessing organizations, unpredictability on how much waste is available, and quality issues. So teasing them, I'm going to go through them all. So logistics, obviously you got to move resources, reverse logistics, direct logistics. So that represent costs, but also represent environmental impact, because imagine all these vehicles, maybe diesel, maybe electric, but whatever they are, they will have an environmental impact. So what we are looking at is a circular economy that instead of being beneficial, may develop more impact. It may be a zero-sum game. It's a big, big challenge in that respect. Then there is the competences. So if you think about steel is very easy to reuse and smelt, but plastics, they are very difficult because there are many types of plastics. Some of them are very difficult to refurbish and reuse. Then the pre-consumption is easy. So if you got waste which is generated in a factory, it's easy to recover. But when you're looking at recovering from consumers, that is difficult. Consumers are many. They are not very disciplined. They may, just throw wrappers on the floor. But importantly, imagine mobile phones. I know that there are very valuable things inside, but taking them apart is very labor intensive, and you are dealing with very minute resources. So it may be actually not viable. And then there may be aspects like technological issues, like, for example, if you recycle carbon fiber, you need to use a lot of energy. So that might have an environmental impact in itself. Plus, does the technology still exist? In some cases, to, for example, recycle carbon fiber, by especially recycle rare earths, lithium, cadmium, we haven't got the proper technology to do that. So the circular economy is a hostage of whether a technology exists or not to recycle it. Next is unpredictability. So in the case of AB Steel, I touch it really with my hands. In other words, we needed recycled steel. We needed basically waste, and the company might have wasted less because they were selling less cars. So we could not predict how much raw materials, which was for us, we would have available. And also we didn't know where it was. We didn't know what the quality was of it. Of course, that's an opportunity, because one of the solutions is digital resources. Even artificial intelligence can tell you, can forecast how much steel is going to be used. But in turn, that it will require some sort of investment. So it's a big challenge. So I want to show you another case study. So this is called Tenture, and it's a company that is in address the problems of plastics. So you all are familiar with this, and also shampoo bottles. So what you do, you go to Tesco or other shops, buy a bottle of shampoo, use it. Perhaps I buy less than you, definitely, and then you throw the bottle away. And if you imagine for a minute how many bottles of shampoos are bought in the economy, you are actually looking at a big amount of plastics, which end up, basically goes in the sea. So what that system is a company near London that come up with a dispenser. So you have one bottle, which may be shampoo or bad gel, and you just go to a retail place, which could be Lush or other another sort of retail place, and you put your credit card in this machine and you fill up your bottle. So that way, instead of having a lot of bottles in the environment, you have got only one. And that, as you can see, it has the potential to reduce a lot of the environmental impact, because you can see the statistics there, 7,500 plastic shampoo bottles that can be saved, 3,000 cooking oil bottles. So those are very, very serious stats that actually may damage the environment. So what that is a business model. So we'll talk, one of the challenges I mentioned is the fact that there is no suitable business model to do that. This is incidentally something that I would call a product service system. Now, this is actually becoming really, really popular. There are some examples, and I'm sure that you're not familiar with this, especially because the brand is not promoted to you, it's promoted to the retail shops. But you may be familiar with Loop. So Loop, it's basically a similar provision. So that is where you have got a bottle which is it could be tomato ketchup, it could be water, and you go and refill it in a retail shop. The difference between the two is that whereby with Tensure, you retain the ownership of the bottle, so you actually got the possession of it. So you go and fill it up. So that means you have got to remember to bring the bottle with you and fill it up. In the case of Loop, you actually handed the bottle in, and you are given a newly filled up bottle, and then that reduced the impact. So you may have seen that one. You may notice some of ASDA's provision. So ASDA is investing quite a lot. So most retailers try to invest in resources and schemes to address the environment. So Marks & Spencer's Plan A is one, but ASDA's they sort of zero on try to reuse the materials, to reuse the packaging. So that really would have a good potential to reduce the waste of plastics, so plastic bottles and plastic packaging in particular, because plastics really has got two components. One of them is packaging, which is really ubiquitous. There is a huge amount of packaging that is got rid of. And then you got mono-use products, like, for example, razors and pens. So that is a real opportunity for having a circular economy. I really, really apologize about some background noise. We may expect it to be popular and take up somehow, but there are challenges of their own. So even in this particular business model, there are difficulties to introduce them. So in terms of a business opportunity, there are some difficulties. So the first challenge that you need to face is logistics. So for example, with Tenture, which is a sort of project on which I did some work, you need to make sure that you fill up the various stations. At the same time, you need to ensure that I as a user, know that how much material is, I know that I can go to a Lush or Asda and I can refill my bottle because there is some product available. So that's a big challenge. So the challenge is logistics, because you need to fill up the stations, and also the information technology. So you need to make sure that the data management. You need to make sure that you know how much products are stocked. But the biggest challenge is consumer practices. And one question that I know that you probably cannot answer back to me, but I can ask you, how often do you remember to bring along shopping bags? I got a big problem with that, so I tend to forget, and my argument is that, or rather, when we interview people on this particular product, we found that one of the big problems was to remember it. So you need to sort of educate customers and consumers to remember their material. So it's a big challenge. But one other important aspects. So do you remember when I show you a previous slides about industrial ecology and industrial symbiosis being very much about relationships? And that is a big issue and a big obstacle. So there are lots of organizations, mostly large organizations, but small companies as well, and they try to recover waste and try to be circular. The problem is that they are very much doing it within the factory gates. So that's why I offer you a distinction earlier about where the waste is generated within the factory gates and outside the factory gates, and in particular post-consumption, so in the consumer arena. So I am working at the moment in a project which is involved. We try to involve external partners. So we're talking about customers and partners in the supply chains, which may be both distributors, for example. And that's a big problem. So companies like Marks & Spencer's, they deal with this all the time. With their Plan A, they are trying to get organizations such as retailers to try to recover materials such as hangers and send them back. But it is very difficult. So what we're talking about is that a lot of the activities that we have got are inside the gate. So what seems to happen is that actually organizations have got a big weakness in trying to generate the trust and relationship with other organizations, which means that the circular economy may be implemented and diffused outside a single company. And as I said, in my Abbey Steel project, that was a big problem. There was an issue with trust, customer retention. So in other words, because of the price of steel rising or falling down, it was really impossible to make sure that the user would use products. And that's why I show you some of the solutions, which was a co-branding strategy. So what we did, we tried to create a relationship where the users, such as Silverline filing cabinets, would say something like, this product contains sustainable Abbey steel, which was the brand that we use. And that sort of allowed us to develop a 2 years contract so that this company, we could actually have a guarantee that it was more or less a regular customer, and try to maximize the collaboration. So those are sort of solutions. So we noticed that the problem of creating a relationship and generating trust amongst different partners, and we try to sort of develop solutions, and obviously using digital resources is artificial intelligence, big data. So try to have ways that allow you to track where the waste is and how to use it, and even forward and speculative buying. So a company that uses valorized waste, which has been recovered from another company, may actually buy in advance. But what remains is that this is a big issue. So there is a big barrier to implement the circular economy, which is to do with creating the right relationship and even networks, because obviously once you know that you need to have companies that specialize in remanufacturing products and valorizing waste, then that means that you got networks that include more organizations. One of the issues with the difficulties in expanding relationships outside the gate also means that the real solution to try to make it easy to predict how much waste is going to be available, which is investing in digital resources, it doesn't take place, because companies know, they think that they will not need to create that sort of facility, and therefore they don't spend the money. Okay, what's the biggest challenge of all? The biggest challenge of all is that we need the sort of large-scale transition. So go back to what we said earlier about something like 8.5% being actually circular. So the circular economy has been not very successful in being implemented. We have got a very, very long way to go. So what that means is that change is very large, because you need a sort of infrastructure which, for example, consists in companies that specialize in recycling, remanufacturing, refurbish every type of product. So at the moment, as I said earlier, steel is easy, plastic is very, very difficult. Mobile phones would be fantastic if we could recover them, but it's very, very labor intensive. So we need investments that may be at governmental level, because it's about investing in a lot of infrastructure, including also logistics. A more extended type of logistics will probably need to be green logistics. And as I said earlier, it needs the construction of big networks, which includes both traditional companies, but also new type of companies, which have got abilities to refurbish material, waste material. So what that means is they got the ability to revalorize waste, to give value back to the waste. These companies at the moment are rare and far between. So there are some numbers of companies that can do steel reuse, but not much about carbon reuse, for example. And obviously I need to be able to perform logistics, reprocessing, and management, so including the data. So that's a very, very big challenge. We all hear the term transition, and that's something that needs to be large scale, and also needs is not only something that business can do on its own. It needs contribution from the government. So policy need to encourage the design of new infrastructure that can recycle, recover, and reuse and revalorize waste. So in summary, what have we done? What we saw is that, there is no doubt the circular economy is a key objective. It's a very big idea, and business needs to invest into it and get their head around it. When you read about the circular economy today, you need to consider the rhetoric that is to do with it. The implementation is still very limited, and there are a lot of problems to implement. And whereas many companies may think about the savings that the circular economy may bring, it is important to consider the big investment and also the big research that needs to be done. So it is not a low-hanging fruit. It's very important, but it requires a lot of commitment. Some people, when I say transition may not be just, is that you could have winners and losers. So if you recycle a lot of materials, you may have companies producing disposable products, which may be damaged because they may sell less of their wares. So that's why it may not benefit everyone in equal way. There will be people that will be left behind. And we need to invest a lot in management as well. So there is a lot of thinking to be made. And logistics and other challenges, such as data, in order to forecast how much waste is going to be available, may create a zero-sum game. So in other words, it may be that you benefit somewhere and you lose somewhere else. So that's all I got to say today. But please, I'm very, very happy to address any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Maurizio, for that very informative and very insightful session. I think we've all understood that there are definitely a lot of challenges out there when it comes to adopting circular economy principles, but there are enough sort of solutions also available. If you just go out and seek them, you will be able to sort of mold them to the benefit of your company or your organization. So thank you for those insights. And just a reminder for everyone that you can leave any comments, any questions on LinkedIn Live. You can use the comment section for that. I think one question anyone would be very interested to know is that if you can give any examples of industries or even countries where the circular economy principles have been successfully implemented. What would you say sort of, an example or a model already out there that other countries can replicate?
Yeah, so first of all, the circular economy is not that new. In the car industry, there are lots of products that have been recovered for a long time. So, for example, battery charger, alternators, dynamos, they can generally be refurbished and reused. One of the problems with this is that generally it's a very messy industry and very wasteful industry. So one thing that needs to happen is that needs to change and be designed in a way that it's a little bit cleaner as an industry. There are lots of cases of product that you don't necessarily need to sell a product. You may actually rent a product. So I personally introduce a small scale business model where we rented prams, and we managed to have 1,044 users. So that was a way, first of all, to reduce the number of prams per person, because you would have a pram which is used by 2 or 3 persons. But also, instead of throwing the various plastics involved with the pram, they could be recovered and reused in a responsible way. So that's a good example that exists. Zipcar and other, even Uber, are situations where you recirculate resources repeatedly, try to maximize the use of value over time. But there are lots of other examples in heavy industries where there is an attempt to recover material. And I just want to make an example which give you a measure of high technologies involved in that. If you imagine an aircraft has got a lot of carbon fiber that makes the aircraft, so even large aircraft. And every now and then, every certain number of miles, aircraft are taken apart completely, and theoretically every component is replaced. So one problem is the carbon fiber that you recovered that usually, I mean, in the past, it wasn't really possible to refurbish, and you would have to throw it away. But that is very, very, very expensive. So a research project came out with a process of pyrolysis, which is basically smelting at high temperature and high pressure. And that way they managed to smelt the carbon fiber and come up with a new roll of carbon fiber that you could use again. So that's a case study where someone had to come back. They had to come with a very costly process that recover these particular materials. So there are lots of case studies where, unfortunately, we threw products away, like razors and bottles and all the rest. There are some cases where we try to use and refurbish the product, and the question is, what is the technology investment looking like? How difficult it is to do it? And that particular case study also shows us another issue, which is sometimes the specification of the material decays. So in this case, we, the company, the organization that did that, they refurbished the carbon fiber, but it was no longer suitable for aircraft manufacturing, and they managed to use it for car manufacturing, but not for aircraft manufacturing. So that's another challenge where we got some case studies, but sometimes the quality, you need to meet some sort of sacrifice, as it were.
Definitely. I think another question would just be around just regulations and policies and how the two can actually bring down the financial implications that companies face, in implementing circular economy principles. So do you think that just bringing about change at the policy level can make a big impact?
Yeah, I think, in fact, first of all, that's really one thing that is very missing. The good news, for example, in the UK, and I think this may involve Ireland as well, apart from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which popularized the concept, there are organizations like WRAP that invest quite a lot of money, which is government money, in researching processes to recycle, among other things, plastics. What I think is missing is a large-scale investment and policy making from governments to encourage this. For example, now there is a tax on sugar. So what that means is that children are actually getting less sugar and therefore risk their health less. What about tax on plastic? If you go and shop at Tesco, you need to pay for the plastic bags. Why shouldn't we pay for plastic razors or plastic big pens? Because that way you still can go and buy a bag of razors for 99 pence, which really makes it a better option than buy a large, a multiple-use razor. So I think there is a lot of cases where the European Union and the UK government is investing to come up with small-scale projects, small-scale demonstrator projects. What is missing is a further push to make them diffuse in the wider economy. That is really something that needs to happen. Of course, there are beams or cases like Lush, which is interesting because they just say, well, do we actually need packaging? And so that is a case that it's really, really exemplary, but it's a bit isolated because there were not many companies that followed that route. So governments should try to create incentive to do that, for example, with taxation and also investment, trying to encourage organizations to invest in new technologies.
Absolutely. We're right on the mark with time, but I think I'll wrap up with my final question just around what do you think are some common misconceptions or just aspects of adopting circular economy models that businesses should be aware of? What are sort of the myths that you would like to debunk for businesses?
Yeah, I think the central issue is the idea that the circular economy necessarily may create cost savings. So it is true that the circular economy gives you a lot of things like security of supply. So you ensure that some particular material is going to come to you and is going to be available. If for electronic manufacturers, things like lithium and cadmium are becoming very rare. So it is very easy to think, okay, so we're going to have a secure supply of these particular materials, and it's going to be cheap. It's going to be easy to save. And that was one of the issues with the steel project I presented earlier. Yes, there was a lot of saving. However, there is a big issue with predictability, so whether the waste is going to be there. And in some cases, unfortunately, you need to get around it and really make an investment. So in many cases of circular economy that I handled, businesses had to work together with other businesses and possibly universities and come up with investments in new technologies and also pay for a lot of research, including do consumers actually like reused products? Because sometimes they don't. For example, with the pram, we had this problem. My project with prams had a big problem of a reused products falling out of fashion. So that created a big issue. So really, the misconception is not necessarily cost savings. It does require sacrifice. It does require investment. And so if you are a small enterprise, you really need to, partner with other organizations in order to try to maximize the use of resources.
Absolutely. I think just partnerships and just starting somewhere, right? And not leaving it for another day. Starting now with something small can actually open the floor for bigger sort of initiatives that you can take at the company level. Brilliant. Thank you for that, Maurizio. I think we can wrap up today's session. Thank you once again, everyone who joined us. And of course, a huge shout out to Maurizio for his insights today. Please keep an eye out on your emails and on our website for future webinars and resources that will be hosted by the Institute of Sustainability Studies. And I look forward to seeing many of you for our future events. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. And thank you again, Dr. Maurizio.
Thank you, and have a lovely day tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.